Okay. So this is going to be different because the last one that is talking, they've already positioned themselves as a renewable energy company. So we're going to be finding out in terms of advancements in sustainability initiatives in the energy sector, nasa na ba tayo, right? Where are we already when it comes to that? So we have the president and CEO of ACEN, which focuses on developing, building, and operating power plants, primarily already using renewable energy, using solar, wind, and hydroelectric power. Give it up for ACEN's president and CEO, Mr. Eric Francia.
Good afternoon, everyone. Great to be here. Mika, thank you for the exercise. I needed that as well to be awake, pumped up. I'm glad to hear that I'm the last speaker because this will be I'll keep it very brief, no more than 2 hours. It's a great, amazing journey, our sustainability journey. But for you, I'll try to squeeze it in deference to our other speakers. I'm glad to be back here at the University of Philippines. It's always nostalgic for me. I spent a year in UP, although I didn't make the ideal quota course here, so I was in the sports program, believe it or not. That was more than 30 years and 150 pounds ago. I was very active in sports, basketball, and so forth. But I decided to shift, get out of transfer school. So I was the guinea pig, part of the guinea pig of University of Asia and the Pacific, or CRC. I was one of those underperforming students who had to be turned around during college. So I guess the moral of the story, but this is a beautiful campus. I really love it here. Never been to College of Law, so I'm delighted to be here. I sent pictures to my colleagues. Boss na ako nila. No? Before hindi ako makapunta dito, intimidating pang mga matatalino at ano. So lesson learned, number one, for those of you who are underperforming in academics, may pag-asa pa kayo. Lesson one. Lesson two, for those who are outperforming in academics, please be nice to people like me who are underperforming. Tulungan nyo sila at one day you might ask them for a job. Okay? And then lesson number three, for those of you who need more guidance, although I might get kicked out of this school, you can try UANP to turn around your life. I'm a board of trustee now of UANP, so, and I just came from a strategy session, so I had to say that, so I apologize. But it's a free country. Anyway, I'm not here to recruit for the university, but here to share with you our sustainability journey, both personally and for ACEN, and particularly for the Ayala Group, which I belong to. Just very briefly, a little bit of background. After I graduated from UANP, being the pioneer batch, I stayed with the university, did the corporate planning there, planned for the university, did a little bit of teaching, believe it or not, calculus. No? So I dare you, Sam, ask me later on anything. Then nakalimutan ko na yung calculus, hindi ko naman sasagot yan. And then I did my master's in the University of Cambridge in the UK. And then came back, wow, nakachamba lang ako doon. 1 year management studies. And then I did management consulting for most of my career for about 13, 14 years. Until 2009. So I didn't specialize in anything, but as a management consultant, you hone a lot of skills in terms of just exposure to different sectors, different industries. You hone your analytical skills, basically communication skills, integration, project management, etc. No? So very good, strong foundation. That intellectual curiosity, which, by the way, is very important, asking the right questions, right? And that really prepared me for what's to come, exposure to different industries and so forth. So for the last 3 out of the 15 years in consulting, I spent in the US, and I get a call from my college professor in information technology who became a headhunter asking me if I wanted to join Ayala Corporation as head of corporate strategy. And I said that Ayala is one of the few groups I'd work for in the Philippines. And as they say, the rest is history. So I did join Ayala in 2009, just 14 years ago. Feels much longer, feels like 40 years, but I mean it the good way. A lot since happened. You know, for you to understand, Ayala is one of the longest standing business groups in the Philippines. We're celebrating our 190th year next year. And Ayala really stands for integrity, long-term vision, empowering leadership such as myself and my colleagues here, and aligning itself with the national development. In other words, sustainability is at the forefront of the group's DNA and the group's mission. We're here about creating impact. So in 2009, there was a big question about what should Ayala be doing, because in, 150 minutes remaining na lang daw. What should Ayala be doing? In the 1990s, we created so much impact as a group. We scaled up Globe Telecom, mobile telephony. We turned around Manila Water. And then medyo tumahimik 2000, 2010. We entered in the BPO industry, but that game became very competitive. So as the head of strategy, we recommended, and if you can go to the next page, we recommended that Ayala get into the power and infrastructure business, because at the time in 2010, 2011, things were looking up for the country because of the new government at the time, President Aquino and so forth. But there was clearly lack of infrastructure to support our expected growth. So as head of strategy of Ayala, I recommended, and my team, for Ayala to get into power and infrastructure. And the board loved it. They supported it, and it said, Eric, great idea. Why don't you execute it? I said, I didn't sign up for that, but challenge accepted. I had zero experience in power prior to this. But as a management consultant, again, we know how to ask the right questions, get to the bottom of things, and make things happen. So that's what we did. We worked with a lot of partners. We always wanted to start a platform, a business, an organization that is focused on sustainability. So our first investment was a renewable energy project. We invested in Northwind, which is the first wind farm in Southeast Asia. It's 33 megawatts in a modest investment. But we quickly realized back then that what the country needed was affordable and reliable power. And I'm sorry, renewables couldn't address that 12 years ago. What we needed was baseload, reliable, and affordable energy, which could only, at the time, come from coal. So if you go to the next page, in the first 5 years, we aspired to reach 1,000 megawatts of capacity. To give you an idea, the top 3 players at the time were around 3,000 to 4,000 megawatts each. Aboitiz, San Miguel, the Lopez Group, they were all in the 3,000. We were at 0, and we said, para naman hindi nakakahiya, so that we'll become meaningful player, let's aspire to get to 1,000 megawatts. And 1,000 megawatts we did achieve by working with partners focused on the Philippines. That's the good news. We reached that in 2015, first 5 years of existence. The not so good news, if you look at this chart, is 93% of our capacity was coal. Only 7% was renewables. If you go to the next page, 2016, 2017 was an inflection point for us. We felt the world changing. There's this groundswell on sustainability, on ESG. Ano ba tong ESG? Medyo mabago-bago pa yung ESG concept at the time, right? But we felt it. Multilateral institutions like IFC were stopping to lend to coal. But there's a lot of ESG sustainability funding, financing that wanted to support sustainable investments like renewables. And renewables were getting more and more cost competitive. But they're not as competitive yet at the time. So what happened was while we're not too big at the time, we decided to shift, redefine our market, So we said we don't mind not being the largest power player, power participant in the Philippines. We leave that to the big companies, but we want to be the largest in renewables around the region while it's still early. And by definition, over the longer term, we will be the largest in the Philippines because renewables is the future, even if we're talking about multiple decades. And that was a very important shift. It was not easy. You might think it's an easy decision, but the board asked me a very pointed question. Eric, do you mean to say we will give up all of these predictable cash flows? Because power plants, coal plants, are typically contracted, may long-term contract na 15 years, 20 years, parang nag-i-invest ka na lang sa bond. Sure yung kita mo, no? Because consumers need that. So very predictable earnings and gives you a good return. We're going to give all that up, sell the coal plants, and invest everything in renewables where our track record was a measly 70 megawatts versus 1,000 megawatts of coal. It was easier said than done. It was, in other words, a leap of faith. It's short of telling me, trust us, trust your management. And trust they did. And that leap of faith was invoked. If you go to the next page, we did this transformation from 73 megawatts in 2016. We started to let go of our thermal assets and invest in renewables, expand regionally, right, and really grow our renewables portfolio. And today, we're one of the largest in Southeast Asia in renewables with almost 5,000 megawatts of renewables, and we're almost 100% renewables already. So it has been a great transformational journey over the last 6 or 7 years. If you go to the next page, we also committed to net zero in line with the Ayala Group. I believe our Chief Sustainability Officer, Mr. Jaime Urquillo, will be here tomorrow to talk about this more in detail. But we are the first business group in the Philippines to commit to net zero by 2050. And as part of this commitment, ACEN is the first energy company in Southeast Asia to complete the roadmap in terms of defining what are the milestones to get to that vision, as opposed to a feel-good, empty promise to get there without knowing how to get there. So we did flesh out that roadmap. In addition to that, we've already committed to become 100% renewables generation by 2025. We still have a little bit of diesel plants. And just late last year, in November of 2022, we successfully executed against a world-first energy transition mechanism. It's a high-tech term, but in layman's terms, that means that when we sell the coal plant, which we did, we sold that with a condition that we will buy it back on year 25, after 25 years of operations, in order to shut down, to retire the coal plant. No? Which is 15 to 25 years earlier than the normal operating life of a coal plant. Because coal plants typically last for 40 to 50 years. The problem that we have in Asia is, number one, we are the 4th largest coal plant fleet in the world. And number two, we have the youngest coal fleet of less than 15 years old in Southeast Asia. Unlike the US, Australia, the average age there is over 40 years old. Talagang magre-retire na yung mga planta doon. But here in this part of the world, it's tough because they still have 20 to 30 years to go, right? So we need to do something special. And this is truly trailblazing. And in fact, I'll be going to Dubai COP28 to talk about this because this deserves a focus because it's the first in the world and people draw some lessons and inspiration from our project, the first in the world ETM. In the next page, you'll see some data here. This is the number of emissions that the coal plant, SL Tech, which is 246 megawatts, emits. That's about 2 million tons per year of emission. So over a normal life of 50 years, that's almost 100 million tons, or 80 million if you just assume 40 years. With this energy transition mechanism, investors already supported us, gave ACEN capital, and we already committed to retire the plant by 2040 after 25 years, and therefore mitigating or removing 30 to 50 million, basically cut it into half. What we're doing now, and my main purpose in going to COP28, is not only share our learnings on how we were able to successfully do that right-hand side, but we want to further be aggressive and have a more accelerated timeline. We think that we can do this by 2030, which will remove a further 20 million tons, right? But we need another mechanism for that called transition credits or carbon credit. No, I'm not going to go into detail of that, but that is a new thing. No one has done that yet, but we're hoping that we can be the pilot, the pioneer for this one. We need it as an emerging nation to help retire those coal plants early. But having said that, part of the just energy transition is to make sure that there's a replacement energy that is clean, reliable, and affordable. And that's why all this mechanism will ensure that there is a replacement energy from solar, wind, and energy storage so that we can replace and we can provide services to Aboitiz Infra, to Watson's for clean and reliable and affordable energy. So huge, huge task ahead of us, but we're up to the challenge. Next slide, please. For us, obviously, sustainability is in the heart of our business because that is our business, renewable energy. But to us, sustainability obviously goes beyond providing clean power. We are very much integrating as well biodiversity, especially in the projects where we operate. Because we're touching nature, right? Solar plants, wind farm, whether it's in Ilocos or in Zambales or in Alaminos, Laguna, we are dealing with biodiversity there, and we want to make sure that we maintain or enhance the biodiversity, whether it's through reforestation or taking care of the various or the blue in the ocean approach. For example, in Ilocos, we preserve and nurture the turtles in the shores of Bangi. So biodiversity is integrated into our operations. We also do circularity approach. For example, all the plastics used in our solar panels and so forth get upcycled to eco bricks, which we use for our building structures and so forth. And even after operations, we rally the community to manage proactively waste management and embrace the whole principle of circularity. On the social side, obviously, we take care of the communities that we work with. We provide livelihood, education, and other needs of the community. We forge strong ties, including indigenous people. In fact, in Australia, we partnered with one Aboriginal group there, a first in Australia, to make sure that we optimize their land in a very responsible manner, in a way that respects their culture and their way of life. Of course, in governance, being an Ayala company, this is high in terms of our standards of integrity and transparency to our stakeholders. We promote leadership diversity, not only gender diversity, but also diversity of experience, of thought, and other forms of diversity. And of course, risk management is an important aspect of the way we do things, given that we're venturing in so many things with new technologies, fast growth, and so forth. Next page. So this is my last page, so I think I'll make the less than 2 hours promise. What does it mean for all of you, for the youth, in terms of sustainability? Sometimes sustainability can be a very general thing. You struggle to think about the so what does it mean in terms of my life? I don't even know what to do with my life. But I think, don't worry, because when I was your age, I didn't know where I was going. But what's important is just a piece of advice, 3 things in terms of embracing sustainability in your way of life. Number 1, it's important to have that sense of purpose and vision. Now, when you do things or when you join an organization or a company, once you move on and leave the 4 walls of your campuses and go out to the so-called real life, when you join an organization, ask yourself, what is the purpose of this organization? What's the reason for being? What good or what impact does it do? Does it align with my own values, with my own aspirations? Number 1. Number 2, sustainability is a whole of society approach. We need to collaborate. This is not a one-man or a one-woman show. And we are all part of a system. And one of the watch-outs is some of us, some of the younger ones, while idealism is very, very good, sometimes nagmamadali tayo na you want to demonstrate impact, right? And with respect to your specific role, gusto nyo yung malaman, meaty, yung may output na nakakabilib, na explicit. Well, guess what? Take a step back. And even if you are, quote-unquote, just an analyst or just a scheduler or a driver or a logistics coordinator, we're all part of an organization that does great things, and that's okay. Huwag tayong mamamadali masyado. You have to see the big picture and how you connect the dots and how you contribute to the greater whole. No? And this is about action and impact, even those smallest or the most fundamental of action. But let not sustainability be just a feel-good, emotions, driven feeling. It's all about action and impact, no matter how small it may be, it all adds up, especially if you look at it from a whole system or organizational perspective. But it boils down to the key question, what is your purpose and what is the organization's purpose? So let me end by saying that we're hiring a lot of new talent, ACEN. A lot of young generation love us because we are the epitome of sustainability. We just announced our 2030 vision, which is to reach 20 gigawatts or 20,000 megawatts of renewables by 2030. So we need all the help. The country needs all the help to scale up clean energy, clean power, and we hope that one day you will be with us in this sustainable journey. Thank you, and good afternoon to all. Do you want to show the video or cut na? Baka, yeah, we have a short 3-minute video if you like, yeah. This is about reimagining the ACEN journey. We've grown tremendously over the last few years, and yet the world is just at the beginning of the energy transition.
We are now in a climate crisis. The world is shifting to cleaner technologies, but not fast enough. This is a wake-up call to accelerate the energy transition.
The entire organization is fully committed to ACEN 2030. ACEN 2030 is our vision to reach 20 gigawatts of renewables by 2030.
The supply from the country's major gas field is declining, and the industry is heavily reliant on coal imports, which have become expensive. Energy security is a key risk, and it's imperative for the Philippines to accelerate its renewables build-out.
Vietnam has significantly scaled up solar and wind over the last few years, although the grid is now challenged to manage all the intermittent capacity. Power demand is also staging a strong recovery, and soon the country would have to resume its renewable expansion and incorporate energy storage.
The energy transition is in full swing in Australia. Most of the coal plants will be retired within the next 2 decades. We expect much of this capacity to be replaced by renewables and energy storage. Australia aspires to be a global leader in green hydrogen exports, which will require massive scaling up of renewables capacity.
Scaling up renewables won't be easy. On-demand availability will be a key challenge, so we need a significant buildup of energy storage to unlock the potential of renewables. We expect land and transmission limitations in most markets, so we need to start leveraging new technologies, such as floating solar and offshore wind.
Partnership has always been in ACEN's DNA. While we build our organic development capabilities, we will continue to work with various partners to accelerate our growth.
Dreaming big and having strong conviction that we will succeed, this is the ACEN way. Will we make it?
Well, we've consistently delivered in the past. So yes, I believe we will.
I believe that it's not a matter of whether we will get there, but rather how fast we will get there. We can skip the questions. No? Okay, you wanna ask? Oh, sige.
Okay,
ask
I want to
questions
ask, because it was very interesting. Diba? It was very interesting. Yes. So personally, actually, one of the things I wanted to ask you, right? How would you convince your partners or your client to actually jump onto the whole renewable energy? Because there's a saying, it's harder to teach an old dog new tricks. So when you do approach these companies that you partner with, what would be your selling point? Is it more like, oh, you can say that you're sustainable? How do you win them over exactly to switch into this renewable energy?
Well, ironically, after the unfortunate Ukraine crisis, which triggered this global energy crisis, it actually helped renewables because fossil fuel became so expensive. Even if gas, oil, coal prices have come down from the crazy highs of the energy crisis, they're still much more expensive than pre-energy crisis. So let's face it, business establishments, while they profess to embrace sustainability, if we offer a product that is more expensive than fossil fuel, they won't buy it. They won't pay a premium, okay? So you need to close that gap. And today, I think that gap is closed. We don't know because prices are volatile, but I think we are in a much better situation. But as long as we equalize the price, the affordability, and reliability, it's an obvious choice to go for sustainability.
Thank you, sir. Wow, sir, maraming fans, ha? One more thing. So ACEN is more on solar power?
Solar and wind.
Solar and wind.
We have zero hydro, so
okay.
Ano lang, yeah.
So in order to create solar farms, though, you do build it on land. So you do displace certain areas. How do you deal with that? Or what is there a plan for the displaced areas?
Yeah, so first of all, we don't build on arable land. We don't want to crowd out food produce like rice, especially. No. Number one. Number two, we do agrivoltaics as well, to the extent that we can plant under the panels. We do that. And then number three, we acknowledge that at some point, we're not there yet, but at some point, land will be limited because of food issues, distance to the national grid, the transmission, and so forth. And other factors like slopes, other geologic considerations. So what we do is we also go on the water surface. And this is why new technology is important. So for example, we just won an 800-hectare concession at the Laguna Lake, right? We can build a lot of solar on the lake. The lake, Laguna de Bay, is a very ideal location because it is right at the load center, malapit sa demand center, no, Greater Manila. And there's 90,000 hectares on the lake, right? Even if you just put 10% of the lake or 9,000 hectares, that's a lot of megawatts. It's about 10,000 megawatts of solar alone that you can put on the lake. Offshore wind is another big long-term potential where you don't compete with food. So again, our government, DOE, has the foresight to start planting the seeds in terms of enabling the ecosystem to successfully develop offshore wind. But I think we're probably 8 to 10 years away from offshore wind scaling up. But we need to think long-term, and these are some of the solutions to address our clean energy needs.
Okay, thank you very much, Sir Eric.
Thank you.